Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. I'm here today with Lindsey Kimura. She is a seer, a divine translator, a clarity and conscious soul guide. Lindsey's background is in wellness, fitness, spirituality, metaphysics, and entrepreneurship. She helps leaders and entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses, uncovering their radiant, authentic essence and expressing it through their work. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to learn more about you and have this conversation with you today.
Me too.
I'd love to start by having you tell me what your natural gifts are.
Ooh, I would say my natural gifts, or I guess gifts that I was born with, are creativity in general. So just making things with my hands, making jewelry, and resourcefulness. So just taking kind of what I have and putting something together with that. And also just, I would say, an understanding of the world in general. I don't know if you want to call that an old soul or if it's a gift of spirituality, but just kind of understanding things, the unseen realms, I would say. And I would say athleticism, or just being able to learn something and then pick that thing up and master it. And yeah, just a curiosity for learning and for life, and just constantly wanting to learn more and explore and connect with the world.
And when you talk about that old soul part, is that kind of like a seership or a clairvoyance, or just sort of a knowing that there is a bigger picture and we're a smaller piece in it?
Yes, I would say it's a knowing, kind of like, oh yeah, of course that is flowing this way, or of course that thing came from there, but not really knowing what the boundaries are, or going beyond the boundaries, I would say, to what you would per se learn, for example, in school. So yeah, just an understanding of how things work, where things come from. And I think a good example, just that I can remember, is when I first started studying the ancient texts, like of Buddhism and the yoga philosophy and all of more of the ancient work. I would think to myself, oh, of course, I already know this. I'm just reading something I know. So I think that's where that old soul or understanding of the realm of spirit really is alive for me.
Yeah, kind of like that multidimensional timelines, like you're able to sort of like see lots of different layers of things and not necessarily
Yes.
knowing what time frame they came from, but seeing them all today.
Yes. Which I think sometimes when I'm speaking with people in general, I push the envelope of, wait, what's reality and what's not, in the mental construct of the person who I'm having the conversation with. And because to me, so much is real, but then I have to remember, like, oh wait, everybody has their own beliefs and their own perspectives. So not that it's a bad thing, but sometimes I've noticed in my younger years, I would catch myself or think like, oh wait, oh, I thought that was common knowledge thing.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I had a lot of that growing up thinking, oh, of course everybody thinks like this, or it's like the most obvious thing in the world, but it's the thing nobody's saying. And then you say it and everybody's like, oh my gosh, why would you? And you're like, I thought everybody knew it and they just weren't saying it. So
Yes.
yeah, I understand what you mean. And at what age did you become aware of these for yourself, these gifts for yourself, or were they just something that was always, they were always a part of your life?
I think that reflecting back upon how I was in the earlier part was my real, allowed me to see it more, rather than somebody saying, oh, reflecting back to me that that was a particular gift or an ability. So just being like, oh, no wonder I was like that as a child. Like I used to collect crystals and I had tarot cards and oracle cards, and just loved Salvador Dali and surrealism, and was just very much in that fantasy life or fantasy world of the possibility that, oh, everything is real, and the more you look into these things, of course they're real. So I think no one really shut that down. Well, maybe parents or other adult figures would sometimes draw the boundaries, but there wasn't anybody that would say like, oh no, that's not. Or so I guess I couldn't quite realize it when I was younger, just because no one was reflecting back, or at least I couldn't remember a point in time of someone reflecting back that it was something different or unique.
Yeah, there was no contrast. You just thought everybody was like that.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. You're so lucky that you didn't have that shut down inside of you as well, and that you're able to then start traveling the world. So I'd love to talk
Yeah.
about your travels and when you started traveling, and some of the really special things that were involved with how you learned more about yourself and a deeper level of the gifts that you have through traveling.
Yes, so I would say I remember my very first trip was with my grandma to Hawaii, because my dad's side is from Hawaii. So we would go there often, but it was my first trip away from my parents. And one of my good friends growing up, her dad was a marine biologist. So we took sailing trips around different islands like the British Virgin Islands, Tahiti, and other island ranges where we could go to the different ones, but on a sailboat, which was really neat because we scuba dived and
Wow.
just had all these adventures. Like we kayaked to Hotel Bora Bora one day and just had all these incredible adventures. And then growing up, I just always thought to go places, whether I was working and I wanted to go on a long vacation, or I didn't even call them vacations, more as explorations or pilgrimages to like Bali. And then I lived abroad once in Japan and then once in Italy. So around there, I would go to the different countries in Europe and then also explore the different parts of Japan. And I really think I've woven travel into all parts of my life, whether I was working more full time and it was harder to get away, or I was more freelance and I could travel more often. And then with my work in the pole fitness industry, we did a lot to spread pole fitness. So traveling throughout the US and Europe, and we got to go to like South Africa and different even continents. So whether it's been for work or just for personal exploration and growth, travel has always been one of my passions.
Well, it's so cool because your gifts of resourcefulness, creativity, being able to learn things really quickly, all probably really came in and helped you as you're traveling, being in new cultures, learning things, and just really having that bigger sense of the world.
Yes, I think it was wonderful to emerge from kind of the bubble of Los Angeles, I would say, because I did go to college on the East Coast and that was my first time living outside of LA. But then really diving into, for example, where I lived in Japan, the town was 7,000 people. No one spoke English. I remember just landing, opening the front door to the house, putting my bags down and crying because I thought, oh my God, I'm so far from home and nobody understands me. But it was such a great immersion experience of when, you know, you just go into cafes and that's how you really pick up the language, and you learn languages like a kid, where you're just fully immersed in the culture rather than studying it for a certain amount of time per day. So it really allows you to pick up the language and the culture. And then I've always loved art history and architecture. So wherever I travel, I like to go into the different art museums and the different cathedrals and just build old buildings. And I notice you can learn a lot from studying the art of a place. And yeah, just
Mm.
meeting the people and realizing how similar people are. And if you just listen and have kindness, I feel like the listening is what allows the communication. Even if you have a less developed aspect of the language, if the person's listening and I'm listening, we can really relate and connect. So yeah, I think that kind of helped weave all these different worlds together.
Yeah, because when I've been someplace and I don't know the language, you really rely a lot on context of body language and kind of eye contact and facial expressions. So there are a lot of other kind of things that are being a part of that discovery of, communication. And when you can't rely on the words, you can see how much of the other factors are involved in all the communication that we do.
Yes, yes. And simply the energy, right? Like if one is jovial and kind and open, that creates the dynamic around the field. And I think just having that kind of curiosity and openness helped a lot. And whenever I travel, unless I'm working, of course, and I need to be at a certain place at a certain time, I always love to just buy a ticket and go. So there've been a few times where I've just been at an airport and like looking at the board, where do I want to go? And I will decide just on that day and then end up somewhere, always finding the place to stay that day. So it's just such a great practice of trusting and feeling in flow, like everything. It's like, oh, you need something and you put your right hand out and it lands in your hand. And it's that real flow that I had only heard about prior to travel in books, like all the Paulo Coelho books or those books about surrendering. And then I realized like, oh yeah, if you really just have trust, everything is there for you.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying too about going up to the board and just kind of following your heart and hearing what your heart says and then going to that place because of your ability of seership and that old soul feeling. Do you ever feel like when you're going to these places that you're really there kind of picking up maybe parts of your energy from a past life or another time or getting flavors of that? I've been here before. I really understand what's going on.
Totally. Yes. And I remember it specifically in southern Spain. I was really attracted to all of the bullfighter rings and just bullfighting. And I'm like, why am I so obsessed with these toros? And then come to find out I had this flash of the way I see past lives is I don't really look for them. They'll just emerge and I'll see it as a movie playing. But I saw myself as like a 24-year-old bullfighter in the ring and like this whole storyline. And I was like, oh, now I understand why that place was feeling so familiar and why I was so at home in these random bullfighting rings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when is the first time that you saw a past life, either for yourself or somebody else? And then when you
Yeah.
do see that, how do you make the discernment about whether or not you're going to discuss it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I'm trying to think, I almost feel like I used to go in and out of them as a child, but I wasn't aware of what that was. So I can't remember a mark. But then when I specifically started using it in my healing work, I think it was around 2016, where I said, oh, wait, this information is very useful for healing, because with healing, you want to go back to the point in time of the cause, or at least the time where you can remember the cause. And oftentimes that lies not even in this lifetime, but in the past lives. So that's when I really started actively being aware of that. And I just remember a specific story where one of my clients was very much attached romantically to a person, and it was just this ongoing cycle. And we did an energy healing. It healed other things like crystals and light work. But I said, I don't think I can help you on this one yet. I'll let you know. I'm staying open to the intention of really helping. And then one day I woke up, I was meditating. I saw her, this guy, their kids, the whole scene. And I saw exactly why the dynamics of how they were in this life were playing out from this past scene. And so then I don't want to communicate exactly everything I see because I don't think that's particularly useful, but I'll do methods for like karmic clipping or uh, um, resolution of the scene by giving just enough detail for the situation and then walking the client through the work. So that's where I think it's been actually practical and useful. And then, for example, the next day she woke up and she says, "Oh my gosh, Lindsey, this was the first morning I woke up and I had no magnetism, no attraction. Like that energy between us was just fizzled out." And she was able to separate. It was one of those that felt like a kind of a coming back in a loop that wasn't very healthy.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
wild how effective and powerful that kind of work can really be, because being able to kind of go to the place where the initial fear was created, or that belief or that scene, and really being able to, like you're saying, karmically clean that up or reframe that for the client is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think that I've never studied officially past life regression, but I think that that probably brings up a lot of the past lives to then come to resolution with. But I asked my friends who are past life regression therapists, like, "Oh, what do you do though? Like once it comes up?" And oftentimes they just say simply being aware of that memory can help. But for me, I think, oh, but what about like what's the resolution element? And I think that's something that just came to me. I've had
Yeah.
spiritual mentors throughout, probably since I was 16, beginning with a Reiki mentor and then just moving through different mentors. And I had one that was very powerful, like Russian teacher who taught these methods which I had never seen or practiced. So very like light work methods.
Yeah, well, you're very intuitive, and what you're doing is very, effective, and really head on with it, because as I also do past life regression,
Oh,
and
wow.
that's exactly, it is the bringing it to the conscious and showing the light, but then also reframing it and putting it in a way that it is able to, like you're saying, create a better life now. So not only, reframing it in a way that it heals, that it kind of gives a completion to that lifetime, and then all of that energy catches up into this lifetime and is able to not have as much of an effect. So it really helps to create a better life today.
I love that you do that, Shannon.
Yeah,
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 we'll
I
have
do
to
both.
talk more about that.
Yeah, for sure. But you're already doing it, and you're already understanding the kind of the real, that aspect of the reframe, and that's really, really beautiful. I'd love to kind of fast forward to 2014, when you quit your full-time job, and how that was life-changing for you, and sort of maybe what some of your fears were around that, and how you were able to move through that and create the life you're living now.
Yeah, so I would say even as a young kid, oh, here's my kitty. Material and financial stability was this one thing that was very much ingrained in me. Even it must have been through parents, though I can't retrieve exactly where. Um, so having a steady, stable, full-time job was a must in my brain. And so taking the leap of quitting a full-time job without anything on the other side was very scary for me. And so I just remember doing it and feeling so free after, and then hiking every day for about a month, figuring out like, oh, what am I going to do next? And I thought, well, what have I been doing and what skills do I have? And so then I just started offering what I had been doing prior, which was business development and marketing, with clients, individual clients who I had known from, and like just fitness and wellness industries and pole fitness, and just started up with that. And it was it was thriving, and I felt free and like I was helping people. and also using the skills I had learned in my career. And then around 2016 was when I thought, okay, I think I'm ready again for another transition. What I feel like I have more to offer. And that's when I started offering the healing and the reading work and the teaching yoga, meditation, of course, continuing to do the pole fitness teacher trainings. So yeah, around 2016, I moved into that. And then just this year, March, when COVID hit, was when I kind of felt like washing the canvas again, blank, or maybe making a new start. So I'm in a new period now where at the moment I'm offering guidance, but I feel like I want to develop into something new.
Wow, you've just said so much. I want to go back and unpack so many of the things that you just talked about, starting with all the tools in your toolbox. Like, I'd love for you to just start by kind of talking about all of the different modalities that you offer. I also love how you're saying that every few years you're reinventing yourself. So you're just taking the work that you're doing deeper and deeper. And when we had talked before, you said, you know, from a perspective of guiding, you were like, when you first started, you were a few steps ahead of everybody, of the people that you were helping. And so that you were making the changes a few steps ahead of them and then teaching them how to do it. And that's such a beautiful circle of healing in general, because I can also say from work with my clients in the salon and my clients with hypnotherapy, whenever I'm helping somebody with something, they're also helping me with the same thing. And whether they know it or not, sometimes all of my clients on one day will come in with very similar energy or very similar issue, and it might be something that's up for me as well. So I love how you're talking about that, but also the idea that you are following your intuition and listening to your own inner guidance and reinventing yourself to go deeper with people as you're going deeper with yourself.
Exactly.
Really powerful.
Yes, Shannon, you really summed that up perfectly, better than I could say it. But yes, I think that's it. And I've always been one who, and I think this goes back to that gift of learning something and then really liking it and mastering it. And then, of course, sharing what I know with the other people, whether it's in a class or in a company or on a team. And I think that the underlying I guess general practice is teaching. So teaching people how to heal, teaching people how to teach has been the common thread, I would say.
That's powerful and really wonderful. So you, could you please talk more about all of the modalities that
Yes.
you have honed over the years, both naturally and also learned?
Yes, I think that they all fall under the umbrella of health, fitness, spirituality, metaphysics, however you want to define that, the unseen world. And pole fitness or pole dance has been such a empowering, a liberating, an awakening practice for the feminine energies, for strength, confidence, bonding with the community. So I'd say pole. And then yoga has been a practice that I've had for a while and that I share. And that's mind, body, spirit, all of the components. And meditation, the act of sitting and stillness. And we say in yoga, in the 8-limb path, that meditation is an effect of practice. So it's not something you practice, like meditation happens with the practice of asana and pranayama. However, you can learn to sit or to be mindful and be in stillness. So I guess maybe the practice of sitting to further open for meditative state. And astrology, so charts, understanding what the chart is, how it's helpful, not only natally, but also relative to the current day and the transits. Let's see reading, so tarot and oracle reading, and any form of divination really connects the unseen to the seen because you have practical tools. And these practices have lineages. So you're not just tapping into the cards, you're tapping into the line of readers before you. And depending on what tradition you read, you're tapping into all of that knowledge from the ages. And so one of my backgrounds is the Hermetic Kabbalah, and that stems back to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was 1888 Victorian England. And they, for example, associated the planetary symbols, Hebrew letters, and other esoteric symbols with the cards themselves. So reading, crystals, work with crystals for healing and meditation and manifestation. And when you think about a crystal, it's a repeating geometric lattice. It's a perfect geometry. So the geometry that we see in the divine realms is present in a crystal. It's like the gem of the earth. It's that divine structure, just like nature is. If you look at a flower or you look at a tree. And so working with crystals is so powerful because it's a body which you can then ensoul with energies, or it already has its own energy. And so there's so much work that can be done with crystals in general. And I think they're really a bridge between nature or the divine realm and the physical realm through the natural realm. Same with nature and plants and anything natural. Did I forget anything, Shannon?
I don't know. Did you? I mean, wow, you have so many tools in your toolbox. I also love that you have all of these spiritual and metaphysical gifts, but then you also have studied pole dancing so extensively. And that as a modality is so interesting because it does really, like, I was wondering, is that really about like kind of, of course it uses your natural gift of athletic because you have to be very strong. It's a very athletic thing, but it's also like moving energy. There's a lot of creativity, like you were saying, the feminine, the sexual energy. So what are all of the benefits of pole dancing from not just the physical, but also the energetic standpoint as a woman?
Yes. So it's a lot of physics. So if you're more of like a magical practitioner, magician style, you understand forces like opposition, push, pull, how to work with gravity to do things that you think you wouldn't be able to do. And so it's very much that scientific, cerebral type of practice. And then also just from a feminine perspective and awakening for example, the Kundalini energy, the rising serpents within the energy body, as often practices call them. And you actually when you have the Kundalini awakening, you see the serpents actually intertwining and rising. And that's really what you're doing on a pole. Like you think of it, it's like the staff, right? And then you are spinning around it, you're climbing, you're flipping. And it really, that circular movement is so good for health-wise for the body, not only physically, but mentally and energetically. And when you think about traditional fitness, because my background is in like sports and fitness, it was very much in the linear plane of forward, back, right, left. So you even think of those aerobic classes, like sidestep, right, left, forward, back. And it was very much in just a very clear-cut plane. Whereas pole, you're in all the planes. So it's an idea of working in multi-planes, multi-dimensions. You have to be able to pull down to lift yourself. And yoga, you push to rise. So root to rise. This you pull to lift. So it's a great practice to play with those subtle forces, the upward moving forces, the downward moving forces, and just circulation in general. And then developing a bond with the other people that you are growing up with in the practice, I think is invaluable. Like the sisters and brothers that you train with, and literally in your underwear, right? So that's a whole other thing, just getting comfortable in less clothes and transcending any beliefs about, oh, I'm too fat, I'm too old, I'm too this or that. I always say it's for everybody and every body.
Sounds like a lot of lessons that
Yes.
you've learned from pole dancing. It's
Yeah.
very, it sounds very intimate as well, and like you're saying, a lot of trust with the community to express yourself freely and also be seen freely and be seen expressing yourself in that way.
Yes, yes. And also, say somebody comes in with past history of maybe trauma, knowing how
Mm-hmm.
to teach someone, people from different backgrounds, like, oh, where is this person coming from? And knowing like, okay, I want to approach it in this way, and having that intuitive, just knowing to say, okay, this is how we're going to, this is the word choice we're going to use. This is the movement we're going to do, because maybe this other movement might be too much at first. So, and I would say we began, like my colleagues and I began when pole, because in the US it was just stripping. So we brought it out of just the strip club, which that scene is very much, it's a whole industry in itself, but it's a lot of, business practices. And there is that art of seduction and the manipulation element, but we brought it out to just be for an empowerment method. So seeing the foundation build and being part of that was exciting. Like we were labeling the moves. Oh, what is this move? We're going to call it that. And it was really exciting to be part of something that was actually brand new, rather than teaching, like, for example, hip hop that's been around for some time or something. That's always my favorite thing, is to like be involved with new territory.
Oh, so I didn't realize that you were a teacher and that you would also help to create some of the foundational methods of pole. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, yes. So I
Wow.
started teaching in 2009. And
Mm.
so I've taught, I've performed, I worked with a pole company, I started a pole league, I helped co-develop a teacher training program. So really that industry has been a very big part of my life.
So when you do a session with somebody, I'm curious, out of all the modalities and all the things that you have in your realm to work with somebody, how do you know where to start? Do you just intuitively, like, what does a session look like?
Yes, I think that's a great question, especially these days. So oftentimes when I learn methods, I then realize, oh, I could actually do it another way that's almost more efficient, almost like receiving new technology. So before, I used to actually go in person and do in-person healings, like hands-on crystals, light work. And now what I do is healing guided journeys. So I actually take somebody with me. We go together astrally and do this healing. And so it's similar to what sounds like a guided meditation, but it's very much customized for them. And so the session looks like talking, and then as they speak, I receive information, and then I talk as well, feedback, and then we go into that. It's light work, but it's not hands-on. It's just like you could do it via Zoom or via the phone.
So I understand sort of how the energy can be transferred in person and also via Zoom, just energetically, telepathically. But for those people who are listening who might not really understand that, could you say more about the energetics and the telepathic energy, and how being in person and being in Zoom can both be very powerful and effective?
Yes, I think that depending on the work, you can't fully replace the good feeling you get when you have hands-on healing, because it's like a massage, right? You, a massage just feels so good, but doing a massage over Zoom is different because there's not that touch. However, depending on what you're looking to heal, you don't need to have that physical touch, because the physical touch is very much somatic in the body. Also, there's a transfer of energy. But if you're really looking to heal patterns like such as addiction or any imbalances in the cause and the field of cause and effect, when we do healing work, we work in the realm of cause, which is before the effect happens. So we're working in a realm that's unmanifest in the physical plane. So because it's unmanifest in this tangible realm, it's before it's become matter, before it's materialized, we can do all of that, whether you call it telepathically or energetically, but you don't need to have any touch yet because the effects are not there. Like you're creating them in the causal realm. And there are different layers of the causal realm. There's like the astral realm, the creative realm, there's divine levels of realm. And really it just looks like what energy is more and more subtle and pure to source. So I see source as this kind of like almost the purest, lightest energy, but it's the least defined. And then it gets more and more into form. And then you can do a lot on the astral plane, but then you can go in beyond, like into the archangelic planes and other planes where the energies aren't as formed yet. Which you get, Shannon, right?
Yeah, I'm putting it all together as you're saying it. It's coming in really quickly. And then also, when you're doing that, are you just feeling those different layers, or can you actually see the different layers? Do you hear guidance? Like, how does it come in for you? Through like sound, feeling?
Yeah, I would say I'm channeling the words, so I'm not even thinking. I'm just I'm talking, and the person's receiving what I'm saying and the energies that I'm emitting, but I'm not in my thinking mind. So it's just channeling, and then when we're both closed eyes in meditation, it's actually the physical, energetic feeling sensation throughout the body, and being able, almost like if you have X-ray vision and it's like, oh, that thing is in the liver, like, oh, that memory is in the solar plexus. So like getting specific, because I do realize that because of my practices with the athletics and the activity, I very much tie everything into the body. So these things aren't just outside or traveling way out here or there. It's all inside, and it's connected to the physical, which I think is a really important element to the effectiveness in the light work, to translate to the physical, is to connect to the body.
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of times that feeling in the body is connected to an energetic pattern or something. And what I hear you saying is, you can, when you're working with somebody in a session, there are times when you can see inside of their quote unquote see inside of their body, and maybe say, oh, I see in the liver, and then you can sort of see the emotional pattern that it's around that.
Yes. And sometimes I'm not even called to say what I see, but rather have a prompt. So like yesterday, for example, in a session, I said, okay, now envision your ancestors. Like, who do you see? What are they doing? And then really see the scene, because that's just what came through. And then like I saw a scene of their ancestors, they saw their ancestors, and I said, notice the qualities you're proud of and that are in you as well. And notice the qualities that you perhaps were transferred to you that you don't want to take with you anymore. So it's like a powerful kind of realization of like, oh, what's mine and what was passed to me? Like a choice again to decide what do I want to take on and what do I not? What do I want to leave behind? Like maybe I'm going to leave behind the alcoholism or the addictive part of the personality. So yeah, I would say that. And then it was a whole like this light show connecting the line of being and the line of action. It was very powerful, but it's always downloaded in the moment. And all the imagery is very much like light and the feeling as well. And it's a vibration. And a lot of it is filling in the energy field and almost like filling in so much that it will push out. I kind of see it pushing out that which isn't, like almost like it's extracting splinters or things that are coming out and then making it whole again, the aura.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
I just
really,
don't know what to call it, you know.
I mean, I think it's just you're using, like you said, your kind of divine translation and that clarity and that consciousness and really bringing it through. But what I really love that I hear you saying is that you're not just saying, oh, I see this or I see that. You're actually seeing something and then sort of prompting a way for them to see it for themselves and then make a choice inside of that moment about like how that is mixed up for them and what it means. So they're really turning on the own light. You know, you're showing them the room,
Yes.
but they're going inside and turning on the light and saying, oh, and that's that collaboration that we had talked about and how that's really powerful for people because then you're able to, you know, do your light work, do your energy work, it pushes it out, but then it also leaves them with that awareness and that consciousness. So when that comes up for them again, maybe they have some action steps or just that light is on, so they're aware. And that's a really powerful way to work as opposed to just telling somebody and then not having them understand why you saw this past life with people standing in a circle holding hands. And you know, not everybody is going to
Yes.
understand what that may mean for them and the changes that could come from that generational type of healing.
Yes, Shannon, just when you said that, I was thinking that we do it the work together. So, and it relates like if I do a house blessing with someone, I also bring them with me to do it. So then they follow and do it. So then they can also come back and do it. So it's like the collaboration of doing it together.
Yeah.
I
That
used to do the work
collaboration.
myself, like in the light realm. I would do all the work when I
Is
first
that
started
exhausting?
healing. Right? You know, like when you learn the methods, you are the channel. So it's not supposed to be, but I remember when I first started doing things like Reiki and light hands-on healing, I would get whatever I was healing and then transmute it from my own body, which I was like, this is not right. But I do know a lot of healers that happens to them. It's kind of
That's the
learning that.
horizontal access as opposed to like the vertical and then the
Yes.
horizontal flow.
Yes. And so when I strengthened my own field, that stopped happening. But I feel this, like you said, it carves the pathway for them to return. And maybe they return to a snippet of that healing and they do it themselves because they did it before. Yeah. So it's like a practical working as well. You're not just sitting on a table or sitting in your chair receiving. And speaking of just kind of saying what you see, sometimes I feel that's helpful, but oftentimes I don't feel that's helpful. Like if it's something empowering, I think like when I used to do the crystal readings, I would do them at events. And because they were short readings, I'd have to get very specific on, well, what do I want to focus on? And what do I want to channel? And so I would always channel and ask for a vision of the person's highest self or a higher octave version of seeing them in their most divine light. And I would tell them that vision. And so I think that's helpful to hear for somebody. And then usually they say, oh yeah, that's my name. And this is what I'm doing. And I'm singing. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Cause like I saw you on stage. So I think that's important because it confirms what they're already feeling in their heart and it's reflecting back. But in terms of giving a whole bunch of what I'm seeing, I don't find that to be super effective, especially in those, because a lot of times when people come for readings, they want to hear like, oh, what's going to happen? When am I going to meet this person? And when am I going to get that job? And those kind of things. And I often don't feel like it's helpful to say like, oh yeah, in your chart, it looks like around age 37, you're going to meet someone significant, because then it just plants a seed in the mind that I think is not the most empowering, or not maybe the highest way to go about it.
Well, sure, because then that person would just be sitting there waiting instead of just living in the flow and doing things naturally, where it would actually lead up to the moment of that, at that moment of the age of 37. Because as you know, all of these things are connected, and all of these things that, you know, we do all along our lives, it's all connected. So it's kind of like that Back to the Future movie. You know, remember when he takes out an action and a person disappears, or these types of kind of cause and effect relationships in the multidimensional, you know, realms. So I agree with you in that way, that it might inhibit somebody's free will or their flow, and then they might not make the choices that lead to that anyway, because now they're on a different path of just waiting for this thing to happen to them.
Exactly. And I find that a lot of people want to know answers. And I think it's the way historically, or maybe culturally, divination has been done before. But I'll hear my friends say, oh yes, I saw this reader and she said like, you know, I'm going to meet this person and then that's going to happen. And I always say like, when you see a scene, it's a flash of an infinite number of possibilities. And oftentimes if you do choose, if you're on a certain track and you make that choice, yes, that's going to be the territory. It's almost like if you open the door to a room and then the reader's telling you like what's in that room and you're already in the room, of course it's going to look that way. But I don't know if that's, for me, it hasn't felt the best to say all of that.
Yes, I agree. I love that you're saying that, because I totally agree with that. You know, there's a multitude of possible probable futures based on however you choose. So yeah, I just love that you're saying that.
Yes. And there are times when, like, I kind of see it, you know, how veins have the little valves that don't allow your blood to go a certain way, like they're one-way valves. I see that in the realm of spirit, where it's like if you've crossed the threshold and you're on that one-way track and you're kind of in a lane, you can see exactly what's going to happen for someone, and it will, but it's because it's a specific section they're in because of certain choices. But then there are other parts where it's like standing in a room with infinite number of doors and they haven't chosen yet, and they could choose all of them. So just depending on what they ask, what time it's in, what timeline. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying, because I'm kind of seeing this picture right now of people coming to ask for answers and then kind of getting that quote unquote answer and then sitting and kind of waiting, as opposed to coming and asking for kind of healing, or to see their own light, or to heal some of these other patterns, which kind of gets them in the position to receive and have choices around any number of probable or unlimited futures for themselves. So it's almost like putting the cart before the horse, when you're just getting the answer, and then you're kind of like, okay, I'm in this room and I'm just waiting for this thing to arrive, as opposed to saying, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to actually get myself prepared and put myself in a position where I can then intersect any number of possibilities for the life that I want to create. And it sounds like that's what you're helping people do with both life and work.
Yes, Shannon, You distill things so beautifully and then summarize them.
I mean, I love the work that you're doing. I've had the most just wonderful time connecting with you. You're so easy to connect to. I feel like we must be doing things in the same dimension because I'm right there with you. I get it.
Yes, I
So
can feel it.
it's really wonderful. If anybody wanted to work with you, how would they be able to find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's lnk-co.com. And there's links to booking sessions, to learning more about the work. I'm also on Instagram at my first name, Lindsey, Landsey _ Kimura, Kimura. So yeah, I would say those are the two best ways.
Amazing. I'll link both of those in the show notes for anybody who's watching and or listening and would like to learn more about you and work with you. And then before we wrap things up, I'd love to ask you two final questions.
Sure.
What inspires you and what keeps you growing?
Oh, what inspires me? What inspires me is the curiosity to learn and know more just about the natural world and humans and nature, just human nature and not the natural world. So I would say nature and the nature of life. And the second question is, what makes me grow?
Yeah, what keeps you growing?
What keeps me growing is normally a challenge, because if I don't have a challenge, then I'm just coasting, but I don't feel like I'm growing, if that makes sense. So some type
Sure.
of a challenge. Usually my challenges come in the material realm. So I'm like, okay, like my money's running low. Now I have to like do something, or, oh, that thing happened. So challenges in the physical realm.
Wow, so interesting. It has been
Yeah.
an absolute pleasure to connect with you and to be here with you. I now also want to do a session with you.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, me too. I want to do
So
one with
we'll
you.
trade sessions. I already know some,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm already getting a whole thing, but
I'm
it's just
excited.
so wonderful to be here with you. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for being such a light in the world and sharing your gifts.
You're welcome, Shannon, and thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay.